Hello, Omnians, it's Reaver here bringing you another news update. Now, unlike the ones I usually do, I'm no longer going to be doing news updates unless they specifically require it, like a big news story. I'm now just going to do everything in these compacted news clips where it's going to be multiple stories at once because I found it easier to do more at once than to just do one at a time. Because if I do it that way, I have to let some news stories slide, but now this way I'm able to do multiple stories. Also, we're going to start doing at least one video each and every week. So you should know by now, or from now, that each and every week we are going to be doing at least one video. Anyway, so before we get into the actual news, we're going to go over a quick recap of some of the bigger things that happened. First off, the VR has finally released. You got the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive out already. From what I've seen, they're both pretty good. I'm probably going to wait a little bit to get them. It's $600 to $700 price range. It's kind of hard to get one of those. This is more of an early adopter phase. Over time, I'm sure the price is going to drop and it's going to be more easily accessible. But when we do get them, we'll be sure to let you guys know and probably give our little thoughts on it in 2 cents. Also, Star Wars Episode 7 released on DVD and Blu-ray. I highly suggest you get the movie. If you haven't seen it, we did a Star Wars Episode 7 review and spoilers discussion. If you'd like to check that out, I do believe we gave it an 8 out of 10. It is a really good movie and it really does do a good job of bringing Star Wars back into this generation. And also, Batman vs. Superman came out in theaters. Was it last week?
No, 2 weeks ago.
Alright, Batman vs. Superman came out in theaters and I was unable to go see it. Dross was able to go see it, so he's going to give us a bit of insight as to actually what happened. Call it a mini review as to what we would have done.
So I will be giving you the information in relation to the Batman vs. Superman movie. I gotta say, it's not a bad movie by any means. It's better than others we've had in this year. But I unfortunately have to say it's not the movie it could have been. You know, when you think of Batman vs. Superman, you think of this awesome fight, you know, they have entire comic book lines related to this story. And so you're thinking, man, they got so much to go off of, they could make this easily. And unfortunately, they don't deliver very well. First off, I gotta say the movie is long, it's 2.5 hours, so be ready to devote some of your time to the movie if you decide to go see it. But also, unfortunately, for the first half of the movie, prepare to be bored. It is slow, and you unfortunately don't see much superheroing. You know, you would think that they would try and do more to establish Superman as the hero, because it's supposed to be his movie in relation to, but unfortunately the problem is that they have little montages where they have a few news bits here and there that talk about how cool and how nice Superman is being, but the unfortunate problem is that you don't actually see much of it, and you don't see kind of how he helps the people. You get small tidbits. There's that scene in the commercials where it shows everybody trying to touch him because they assume he's a god sent from the outside. But the problem is that they don't do a good job of making him appear a hero. You feel like you should be rooting for him a little bit, but it's one of those where it's like,
It's not enough setting up.
Not enough setting up. That's why I feel they needed to have another movie before this, but they're obviously wanting to set up their universe, so they kind of just move along with it. As to Batman, you would think we would know somewhat of what is going on since we had the Christopher Nolan trilogy before, but it's not really, because the entire movie takes place pretty much on the Superman side, where it has Lois Lane, those government officials who were in the first movie. The only people that are in the movie from Batman's side are Batman himself, played by Ben Affleck, who he's more of a comic book style Batman. Christian Bale was more of a director's choice. And then Jeremy Irons, who plays Alfred, who actually does he provides most of the comic relief in this movie. He's pretty funny at times, and I actually liked him as Alfred.
But all of those ones with Christian Bale as Batman, they have nothing to do with these movie series right now, I believe.
Yeah, it's from what I understand, they actually are like 2 different universes.
Which kind of sucks, because they had some pretty good points in that movie.
Yeah. So if you expect to know somewhat of what is going on because you watched the Christopher Nolan trilogy, no. There's a lot that they don't explain. This is obviously an older Batman. And this is a darker movie. You know, we're used to Marvel right now, who most of their movies are more upbeat, more hilarious. You know, just look at Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man for more recent examples. But the problem with it is that this is all a darker tone. Well, it's not really a problem, but it makes the movie, unfortunately, more slow because they always play on this.
So if you go here expecting a Marvel movie...
Yeah, don't expect to be entertained like you are with a Marvel movie. This is more of the adult kind of version. Batman kills people, by the way. If you thought he was a pacifist, he kills people. He's got a... I'll tell you now, he blows up a few people too. They have an actual entire scene where he actually uses the Batmobile to... He uses the Batmobile to tow some cars around and smash into people.
What about Michael Keaton? He killed a lot of people.
We're not talking about him. Also, one of the big bad guys, Lex Luthor, who's played by Jesse Eisenberg. He wasn't Lex Luthor. I'm sorry. Jesse Eisenberg is a good actor when he does what he does. He plays himself, and in some movies, like Now You See Me, that works out great. But in this movie... he's not a Lex Luthor. He seems like that kind of guy who his dad died young, which he did in this universe. His dad is the one that officially set up Lex Corp, whatever. And the problem with that is that he plays the kind of kid who grew up with all the nice toys and no adult supervision.
Which is basically what happens.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of how it goes, and he's a smart aleck, and he just doesn't have the kind of presence you would expect with a guy like Lex Luthor.
I mean, we don't watch a lot of Superman shows like that. Like, I'm more into Batman, but I know Lex Luthor enough that Jesse Eisenberg, he doesn't seem to be the best candidate from what I could see on the trailers and then what...
I mean, he has hair. Lex Luthor's bald.
Well, I think he actually, in some of those things, he starts off with hair.
Yeah, he actually does lose all of his hair at the end of the movie. And you see why later. But pretty much, and then the conflict between Batman and Superman that they try to set up. Batman's actually makes sense a little bit. In this movie, Gotham and Metropolis are sister cities. And what actually ends up causing Batman to really not like Superman is they actually take what happened in The Man of Steel with Superman pretty much destroying Metropolis, but it actually goes on to show that he was doing a lot of things happened in the battle over in Gotham. And you know, Bruce Wayne is there and he's trying to save his people, get them out of the Wayne building, but a lot of people there end up dying. And actually, fun fact, Bruce Wayne saves somebody that plays a key role later. He's the guy that he helps get out of the crush from his legs being crushed. He plays a part later in the movie. But the problem with that is that he doesn't like Superman because of all the destruction he caused. He thinks Superman's too powerful, needs to be kept in check, which kind of makes sense, you know. Got this alien who comes out of nowhere, and the only way that you can beat him is with this new rock they call kryptonite. But then the only reason that Superman doesn't really like Batman is he thinks he's too violent in the way he handles the criminals. Which, if you see this movie, it does make a little bit of sense, but it's like, really? I mean, come on, you can have a civil conversation with him and talk it over.
I just usually think it's because of their different methods. I think that's how it plays a role in the comics.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at it, Superman killed General Zod in the previous movie. And that's what he kind of gets mad at Batman for doing, for being a little too violent, so he's like a hypocrite.
So basically, Batman's always saying how he's too powerful to just go freely. And Superman just doesn't like Batman because what? He doesn't like what he does, basically?
He thinks he's too violent and too... Pretty much, with the way they play it, he doesn't like the way Batman handles the criminals. And so because of that, he tells him... He literally will stop him when he's chasing down some bad guys at one point and says, "You're old news. I'm what's going to save everybody. Don't come the next time they call you." That's literally what happens at one scene in the movie. And so that, it kind of sets off a little rivalry. But the main reason they come down to fighting later is kind of stupid in a way, because it just feels so forced. It's because it is, but it's not in that kind of way that makes you feel like, oh yeah, this is a great reason for them to fight. So all in all, it's an okay movie. I'm not a huge fan of the DC universe, so I have it from a more casual standpoint. If you are a comic book reader, I've heard that your opinion is a little harsher to the movie. But for a casual like me, it's a good 7 out of 10. It's not great, but it's also not bad. And so if you mainly watch it if you want to know how they're going to establish the universe, because they do a lot of establishing in this movie, which is what takes place for the first half of the movie. A lot of establishment happens. But besides that, just kind of watch it if you feel like you really want to watch it. There is a big spoiler that happens at the end, which I'm not going to spoil for you, but it's one of those where it's just like, really? Are you that desperate to catch up with Marvel right now that you're trying to do all this at once?
So basically this movie's all one big setup.
That's all it is.
You're probably going to want to watch it at least once if you're hoping to go through and watch some of the later movies then.
Yeah. It does its part to set the Justice League, which was what everybody knew it was going to do. It's part of the title, Dawn of Justice. But they also set up alternate storylines, especially in relation to Batman. He has some of his nightmares in this, which helps establish later movies. But it just kind of feels like it's all too jam-packed in there. The only reason they were doing it was to set up their entire universe.
It should have just been about Batman and Superman.
Yeah.
You know,
pretty much all the cool stuff happens at the end. If you just want to skip forward to the last hour of the movie, that's where all the cool stuff happens.
So first things first, I found this to be one of the more fun of the news stories, and that is that Scholastic is partnering with Blizzard to make a World of Warcraft children's book series. The author will be Greg Weisman. He's worked on a lot of other comic books like Spectacular Spider-Man and Young Justice. I think it could be kind of fun. I'm most likely not going to read these books, but I found it to be a bit of an interesting tale out of like everything else we found, and who knows, it could be really good. But it's more of a children's storybook, so if you're looking for a really hardcore and awesome book in the World of Warcraft series, you might want to go for some of the novels that have already been written, because this is just more for fun, basically. I'm really sort of weirded out that we haven't heard a lot more about this. It's Shadow of Mordor 2. The rumor has it that a girl showed in a resume that she had been working on specific things for Shadow of Mordor 2. And this was a really awesome video game. Now, I wasn't around back then to do anything about Shadow of Mordor, but I gotta tell you, if you haven't played that game yet, you definitely should, especially if you're a fan of just like big open worlds and a fan of the Tolkien series. It does take a bit of liberty with the lore and everything like that, but it is a really good game, and I'm really excited for anything else they have, because it's just one of those things that you don't know that you want it until you have it. If you haven't played it, play it, and be really excited for this next one. We might hear more about it at E3 or something like that. Now, I'm not so sure what to think of this. They've already announced that the Fallout 4 Harbor DLC, and that it's going to be bigger than the Shivering Isles, which was one of my it's got to be one of my favorite DLCs ever, but I'm just sort of worried because Bethesda has never really been one to rush all this DLC, and you already had like a lot of season passes and a whole bunch of different like just goodies and other things like that related to Fallout 4. It really looked like they were monetizing it. Not to say that Fallout 4 wasn't really all that bad and it didn't deserve a lot of this stuff, but I'm sort of worried about the fact that Bethesda is trying to do a bit too much, or getting into that too much, and just releasing a lot more DLC of stuff that could have originally been in the game. I'm excited for any DLC by Bethesda, but it just has me worried a bit, because Fallout 4, to be honest, it isn't some of their best work. It's got some really awesome mechanics, but it kind of had me worried, especially after ESO and how kind of bad that was. I mean, it's gotten better, but it wasn't Skyrim, and this doesn't really seem to hit that point I got while I was playing Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas. And I'm just sort of fearing that they're trying to get too much into what a lot of other people are doing, which is holding off a bit more in the DLC. And I don't know. Tell me what you guys think about this. So this is another rumor we heard from Activision, and that is that the next Call of Duty game will be set in space. I kind of found this one a bit hilarious because, as you've seen...
Wasn't Ghost in space too at one point?
Yeah, it was set in space, and these are the same people who made Ghost, by the way, but they're obviously not connected in any sort of way. Not like Black Ops, the Black Ops series. This is being set in space, and they're actually saying how there's going to be separate warring factions in space, kind of like an actual sci-fi video game. Any of you guys think this, that they keep doing this, it's basically going to turn into Star Wars or Star Trek? While it may be cool, it's just... A lot of the earlier Call of Duty games made a great living off of what it was really like to be in war. I mean, of course, they could never really fully simulate it back then, but they were really good games, and it just seems that they're just keep on pushing it forward. I mean, a lot of these games have been really, they seem like remakes. Each year it's just been better graphics, a few different mechanics, but it's always really stayed the same formula, and it's I kind of find it funny how the only way they think they can really shake things up is by constantly pushing it forward into the future. While it may not be necessarily a bad thing, this could be good, but I mean, like, the setting this could possibly take place in, and like the different characters from this universe could be really good. So hopefully they will get this one right. I mean, Black Ops 3 was good. What was it? Black Ops Call of Duty Advanced Warfare was it seems to be getting a teeny bit better, but it's not the Call of Duty that we grew up around. So we'll just see how this all works out. Now, this is one thing that really annoys me more than it probably should, and it's from the developers of Titanfall. They're talking about the next game, and that is that it's going to be 30% larger than the original, which I guess if you really like the other game, it was good, but the original Titanfall had no story, and it wasn't even big, so 30% larger, it doesn't mean much. That game had such a short shelf life compared to even Evolve, and I just hope that they're able to bring together a really good and unique story, because as I was saying in some of my earlier videos, the gaming market has been saturated by FPSs. So you really gotta find those really good and unique ways to make it your own, because just the original stuff, it does not cut anymore. And if they want this game to do well, they're going to have to add a unique story and more than just 9 maps on release. Now, this is a little bit more of a side tangent, but I'm really excited for it. Star Wars Rogue Squadron, Star Wars Space Simulator, is now on Steam. It is a great game. It came out a long time ago. Sorry, I can't remember the exact year. But if you haven't played it, or if you're a real big fan of it, it's now on Steam, and I highly suggest you go and play it. Now, lastly, and getting away from games, the next Wolverine movie is going to be following the Old Man Logan storyline. And for many of those who don't know, this was a very visceral comic book series. There's a lot of bloodshed, Wolverine gets devoured, and more than its fair share of decapitations. So the next Wolverine movie, I'm also going to assume, due to Deadpool's success, is going to be rated R. So if you were hoping to take your kids with you to see this movie, or if you were below 18 or 16, 17, and you wanted to see this movie, I would not count on seeing it now. I'm sorry. I'm hoping it's going to be good, because the last Wolverine movies have not been fantastic. They've been subpar. But I know that the Old Man Logan storyline was very good, and if they can somehow adapt that into the movies, that would be awesome. So tell me what you guys think of this. Do you guys still plan on seeing Wolverine 3, even though it's most likely, or it is going to be rated R, forgive me for that? Are you going to get Star Wars Rogue Squadron, which I highly suggest you do? What do you think of this Titanfall business? And Are you guys excited for Shadow of Mordor 2? I really hope that they make a second one. I do believe they will. But I mean, it's still we still haven't heard anything about it, but I think it's a pretty safe bet to believe that they're going to be making a second one. Comment what you guys think in the comments below, and as always, like and subscribe because it really does help us out. Truly. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time.